What is going on, Dehave Nation? Hope you guys are all having a fantastic day today. Welcome back to the channel. And for today's video, folks, we're going to be doing a tier list, which is going to be ranking all 30 NBA teams ahead of the 2023-2024 season. I figured this would be a good time to do it since we're coming up right on the season, a couple months away. I'm just going to give my opinions on where I think every team stacks up in regards to the playoffs. This will be, like a sort of a playoff prediction video with obviously rankings involved. And let's go through the tiers that I made. Basically, the top tier is going to be what I think are legitimate contenders. These are teams that, you could see making a run to the finals. In fact, I would actually predict some of these teams to go at the bare minimum to the conference finals and compete for a championship this year. Right below that, we're going to have conference finals ceiling, which is pretty self-explanatory. These are teams that really don't have the ceiling in the playoffs that some of these legitimate contender teams have, can really only make a case that they could make it to the conference finals at maximum. Just below that, we have playoff teams, which is, obviously teams that you would expect would be in the playoffs this year, but can't really see them going very far in the playoffs, maybe like a second round exit at the most. Below that, we have the play-in tournament, which are going to be the teams that aren't exactly, built for a playoff run this season, but you could easily see making the play-in tournament. Below that, we have teams that are going to be in the lottery, which means, they're not going to be a playoff team or even a play-in team. They're not quite worse records in the NBA. Like, you can't see them being the bottom of the conference, but they're right there. They're not really good enough to be a play-in team yet. So let's just get right into it, man. We're going to start out with the Brooklyn Nets. And for the Brooklyn Nets, I really like their roster. I like what they're building there. Definitely going to have to develop those guys, Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, into being, lead guys on a playoff team, which I don't think they're quite there yet. They don't really seem to have the depth as well. So, it really depends on how good Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson can be this year. If both of them can take another step up from what we saw after the trade from Phoenix last year, I think, they could easily be a play-in team. I could see them being a lottery team, but I do think they are better than some of these lower tier Eastern Conference teams, so we'll put them in play-in tournament for now. The Los Angeles Lakers, it's hard to say, really. I think conference finals ceiling is pretty good for what they have in LA. I did like the moves they made in the offseason. I'm really torn between, legit contender and conference finals ceiling. I think conference finals ceiling is a little harsh for the Lakers because I do think, if LeBron and AD get going at a certain point in the playoffs, the West is just so tough. I would say conference finals ceiling is fair, just the way the roster is built right now. It's really going to depend on how good LeBron can be in the playoffs. I know he was dealing with some foot stuff last year, but seemed like he was gassed towards the end of the playoffs and wasn't really able to make that LeBron impact that we always know he can in the playoffs. So I think conference final ceiling is fair for them. Atlanta, I'm going to say play-in tournament. That's what they've really been the last couple of years. I don't really think they improved the roster significantly by any means in the offseason. So I'm going to say play-in tournament. I could see them being like a second round team or maybe, but even that's kind of a stretch to me. The East is pretty tough right now. So I think that's a fair spot for them. I will put them above Brooklyn, though. I think they are better than Brooklyn. Boston, I'm going to have to go legitimate contenders. I would have said the same thing last year, although I'm not as high on the Celtics as many other people are after the Kristaps Porzingis trade, but I do think putting them in conference final ceiling is way too low. I could definitely see them being in the finals. They could easily do it. The East is tough, but they are right there with the Bucks and, Miami and stuff like that, depending on what Miami does with the Lillard situation. But either way, legitimate contenders, I think is fair. Charlotte, I'm actually pretty high on Charlotte. I will definitely put them in play-in tournament team. They could easily be a lottery team for sure, but I'm much higher on Charlotte this year than I think a lot of other people are. I think they're a sleeper team in the East for sure. Let's just consider what we know about Charlotte. I think, obviously 2 years ago they were a play-in team, and I think they've improved significantly since then. Granted, so has the Eastern Conference, but I really think Charlotte is right there this year. I could even see them, sneaking in like a 6 seed, or I really do like, that might sound crazy, but I do like where the Charlotte Hornets, what they're building. You get Miles Bridges back, who was your second best player in that play-in tournament season. If LaMelo Ball can be what he was that year, I think, and now you have Brandon Miller, see how he pans out for them as a forward. But I really I like their center situation. I think they have 2 centers on the rise. I just think Charlotte's a, pretty good team. Kelly Oubre, Terry Rozier, these are guys that have been, they're veterans at this point and can score the ball when they get hot. So I like Charlotte. I really do. Chicago, I'm going to say lottery team. I don't see it. I would actually take the Hornets over Chicago if I had to take one right now. I think Charlotte finishes with the better record in my opinion. Like, they have, it's the talent isn't really the biggest concern. It depends how Lonzo Ball, if he comes back, and how impactful he can be. If he plays like, New Orleans Lonzo, or even the Lonzo Ball we've seen just a couple years ago in his first season with the Bulls before the injury, if he can be that type of impact player for them, I think that they could easily be ahead of the Hornets here. There's just a lot of ifs. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan pairing hasn't gone so well. They brought back Vucevic on a big extension. I'm not really sure why they did that. Just don't love Chicago right now. Don't love what they're doing. And I think their future is bleak. And I also think that they're not even a contender or even close to that right now. So that's where they're going. Cleveland, I'm going to say conference final ceiling. I think they're about a superstar away. Like if Darius Garland develops a lot more, he has a breakout, like a true breakout season. I know he was an all-star a couple of years ago and he's a great player, but if Darius Garland can really take that scoring leap, I think, you could see them being right with the Celtics. Donovan Mitchell, obviously one of the best players in the league. You have great defense in the front court. I think their depth got a little bit better. You brought in Max Strus for some wing depth, and George Niang for some shooting off the bench, where I would assume he will play. I like the Cavs a lot. I really do. I think they're, I wouldn't say they're a second round knockout guaranteed. I think they could be in the Eastern Conference Finals if everything goes perfectly well for them. I do like, I think they're in that Lakers tier. I think that's fair. Dallas, I'm going to say playoff team. They had a pretty good offseason in my opinion. You bring back Kyrie Irving on an extension. You get a lot bigger at the center position. You bring in Rashawn Holmes. You draft a center, which has obviously been their weakness for quite some time. I like what Dallas did. I really do. I think, their defense has to be better, especially on the perimeter. I don't love the perimeter defense situation that they have going on there, but I do think they are, about a 6 seed. I think I could see that. And if they're a team that if they get into the playoffs, they're a scary matchup. First round wise. I really think that as far as 6 seeds go, you don't want to be playing Luka Doncic in big games. If you're someone like Golden State or Phoenix or even Sacramento, I think that could be a tough matchup. So Dallas Mavericks playoff team for sure. Denver Nuggets, obviously, if I had to pick a team that would win the finals right now, I think it would be Denver. I know their offseason hasn't gone great. You lose Bruce Brown, who played a big role in your championship run. I think that's a big time loss for them. But listen, they have their core intact for quite a while now. You have the best player in the world, in my opinion, in Nikola Jokic. You have coming off a historic run. You have Jamal Murray, you have MPJ, and you have, some solid role players as well. I do think that losing Bruce Brown is going to be bigger than people expect. They have some young guys, Christian Brown, that could get a little bit better. I think that kind of picks up the slack of that, but I do think the Denver Nuggets are my clear favorite to win it all. Golden State, I'm going to go conference final ceiling. I think if we're going to say that the Lakers are there, I think Golden State is too. I just don't love the CP3 fit on paper. At least we're gonna have to see how it works out. Obviously he's an all-time great point guard, and he's one of the better basketball IQ minds that we've ever seen. Steph Curry as well. They're just a ton of smart players on that team. Obviously that's how they have been so successful, one of the reasons, but I just don't love the fit, especially defensively. You might have to even consider bringing CP3 off the bench. People are saying they're expecting him to start. I just don't. If you start him at the 1 and Curry at the 2, you're in a similar situation to the Luka Kyrie thing where you're just not going to be able to really stop anybody. And then Clay at the 3, Draymond at the 4, Wiggins. I just don't know how it's going to work. I don't love the fit on paper. I really don't. I could easily change my mind once we see these guys start playing together, but I'm sure Steve Kerr will figure something out. But I just don't love the fit. I think they got worse. I really do. Houston, I think, is a play-in tournament team for sure. You spent a ton of money in the offseason picking up Fred VanVleet, who is an all-star point guard, really good player. Can really stretch out the floor. Bring in Dylan Brooks. I don't love the signing, honestly, but he can defend pretty well. He's an experienced playoff player, you could say. He is a playoff player. He has played in the playoffs. I can say that about Dylan Brooks. I just don't know how many winning players you have on your roster right now. Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr. These guys have never really had any expectation on them to, win games. So I think with Ime Udoka being there, that helps them a lot. They have a lot of talent on the roster. I'm not totally sold on how well these guys are going to be able to do year one with all the expectations they're going to have to, be a play-in team or even sneak into the 6th seed or something like that. So I don't know. I like the Rockets. I like what they're doing. I think they're, they probably spent too much money in free agency at this point in their rebuild, and like I said, they have tons of talent on their roster. They have a lot of good players, but these are players that are unproven winners, a lot of them. So Rockets play-in team. Pacers, I think you could go top of play-in tournament or playoff team. I'm going to say play-in tournament. I really like their roster. I like what they're doing there. Tyrese Halliburton, one of the better playmakers in the league, obviously. You have solid scoring options on the wing with Mathurin and Buddy Hield. You have a great rim protector in Miles Turner. Draft another forward who can play defense. I just like the Pacers roster. I like what they're doing. They have a lot of good, similar to the Rockets. They have a lot of good players. I do think the Pacers are way further along in terms of, acquiring winning talent who are, players that could win games right now. They're winning players right now. And what I mean by that is these guys are smart with the basketball. They understand the game very well. They're not going to take wild shots on the perimeter. You know, some of these guys on the Rockets might. Rockets are super young and raw, whereas the Pacers are young. But I just feel like they're a little bit ahead in terms of development in, you know, decision making and what it takes to be a winning basketball team. I think these guys are a lot more ready to be that type of squad. So I like the Pacers as a play-in tournament. I think, you know, maybe a little bit behind the Hawks just because of, you know, Trae Young really. But Detroit, I think, is a lottery team. I think a lot of people are high on Detroit. People say that, oh, well, you know, they should be ahead of the Hornets and they should, you know, they're kind of interchangeable. But I don't know about that. I think that Detroit is a little bit behind some of these teams up here because similar to the Rockets, they have a lot of unproven talent in terms of being able to win basketball games together. Can Cade Cunningham stay healthy? He's an incredible talent, unreal talent that you rarely see at his position. Can really do a lot of great things for you. Jaden Ivey has, you know, I really like their potential is what I'm trying to get at, but I just think right now they're just not there. And if I had to pick 4 play-in tournament teams for the East, these are my 4. I just think they're a little bit behind some of these teams up here, but I really do like the ceiling. I like the Monty Williams hire. I think that's a great hire. Just not sold that they're there yet. For the Los Angeles Clippers, that's a tough one to rank. Really weird one to rank. Kind of like the Sixers in that way. You know, I think there's a lot that could happen to their roster before the trade deadline that could really shift the way we look at them. There's also just a lot health-wise that, you know, could go down, that has gone down the last few years, that's really held them back. How many games will Kawhi Leonard even play? How many games will Paul George even play? Can you depend on these guys in big moments? I'm not sure. I'm pretty low on the Clippers in terms of how I actually think things will shape up in the West. They'll be a playoff team for sure. I just have to see some reliable consistency out of their 2 best players, which we haven't seen over the last few years. Love their roster. They're one of the deeper teams in the league, in my opinion. On paper, this team is very, very solid. I just think games were played on paper, then the league would be a lot different, right? So Memphis, I'm going to put in conference finals ceiling. This is another team that is pretty inconsistent, especially with their best players. If Ja Morant can really be consistent down the stretch of the season and really take them to where they need to be, Grizzlies could easily be in the conference finals. But they would definitely have to go through a team like the Warriors, like the Nuggets, like the Lakers. That's going to be their biggest test, is can they get over that hump at this point with the roster they have? I'm not so sure. Miami, I think you have to say, is a legitimate contender. I think I'd be extremely naive to put them in conference finals ceiling. I don't, you know, they lose Gabe Vincent, they lose Max Strus. They get a little bit weaker at the guard position, but who knows what happens with Damian Lillard. I think that is going to, if they get Damian Lillard, I think they're ahead of the Celtics. I really do, by a lot too. I think they're the clear favorites to come out of the East if they get Damian Lillard. With the roster they have now, I'm not so sure that they'll make it past a team like the Celtics or like some of these teams later on that we're going to see in the East, but Miami just plays better than you think they're going to all the time. So I think to put them in conference finals ceiling would be just wrong, just a bad call. So we're not going to do that. Milwaukee is my favorite in the East. I think what they went through last year, what they put themselves through last year, I don't think that's going to happen again. I think that was, you know, I wouldn't say a fluke because it wasn't, because Miami just does that. But I think they'll learn a lot from that. I think, you know, obviously they have a new head coach now, no head coaching experience, which is, I think, not a great thing. But I think a lot of their issues came down to coaching. Coach Budenholzer just really not making a ton of adjustments, you know, when we were all probably screaming at our TVs, just switch the matchups, stuff like that. But I think the Bucks are, you know, they bring back their core. They really believe in their core. I would be lying if I said I didn't as well. They scare me more than the Celtics, probably just as much as the Heat. I think when they're playing well and they're all locked in, and if Chris Middleton can be the guy he was before his ACL injury, I think they are obviously the clear favorite to come out of the East. I think people are overrating how much the Boston Celtics got better. I actually think could make a case they got worse, but we'll save that for another video. Milwaukee Bucks, my favorite to come out of the East. Minnesota, I think they're a playoff team. I really do. I think I can't really see them going further than the second round in the West, especially with how tough the West is. But I think they're obviously talented enough to make the playoffs. I think Anthony Edwards is going to take a big leap this year. I really believe that, especially with, you know, how well he's been playing for the U.S. team right now in the FIBA World Cup. So if you look at that and you see the projection there of Anthony Edwards takes a big jump, is the clear number one option on a consistent basis, and I think he obviously can be. Like I said, don't think the Timberwolves will be in the conference finals by any means this year, but I do think they are better than people give them credit for. before. New Orleans Pelicans, they're a cool play-in team for me. You could make a case they're a playoff team if Zion plays 60 games or so, but will he do that? Probably not, I would say. It's hard to rely on that at this point. Solid role players they have, especially at the wing. I do like their team, but I just think, without a reliable Zion playing enough games, I think it's going to be tough for them to get past the play-in. And to be clear, I should have said this before. This isn't like my absolute prediction of, Miami's going to be coming out of the East, or these are just teams that I think could. This is their ceiling in my opinion. Like, this is what I think could happen. New York Knicks, they're a playoff team. Obviously Jalen Brunson, incredibly talented, has been really carrying the team in the playoffs last year. I think if Julius Randle can just shoot a little bit better in the playoffs, you could make a case they make the conference finals last year and get past Miami. We just need to see more consistency out of their second, third options, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle. If they could put it all together, I could see them being a conference finals team. I really do. But I think similar to Cleveland, some of those guys have to take a step up, in particular RJ Barrett. I don't see them having a super high ceiling. I think the Cavs have a much higher ceiling, but I think the Knicks are probably safer to say that they'll be a second round team. Oklahoma City, I think they're right there with New Orleans. I think I could see them sneaking out of the play-in. I definitely think they will be a play-in team for sure. If Shea plays the same way he did last year, you're getting Chet Holmgren back. You're seeing how far Jalen Williams can take a step. He was incredible as a rookie last year. I believe second in Rookie of the Year voting. I really like the young core of this team. It's just hard for me to say that, this is a Dallas Mavericks, Minnesota Timberwolves type ceiling. I think they're right there with New Orleans in play-in tournament. I would actually trust them more in a play-in tournament type scenario, but yeah, I'm probably going to put them ahead of Houston and New Orleans, but I just think that, that's the team that I would look out for in the play-in. Orlando Magic, they're a lottery team for me. I do like their young core. I just think they're a little behind teams like the Hornets, like the Nets, like the Pacers. I think they're just not there yet. They're not as far as those teams are in their rebuilding phase. You know what I mean? I don't know. The Magic are kind of similar to Houston and Detroit, where they have a lot of good, solid players that you could see being really good down the road. High ceiling guys. But are they, winning players at the moment? Do they have to develop certain aspects of their game to get to where a team like Atlanta is, or like New York? I just trust these teams more. That's what it really comes down to. I would trust these teams more to have a better record this year, given the roster that they have, everything we know about the team right now. Things obviously could change, trades happen, stuff like that, but Magic go right here. Philadelphia, my Sixers. I'm a Sixers fan, obviously. This is a tough, kind of like the Clippers, tough one to rank, especially not knowing where James Harden, what's going to happen with James Harden will probably determine this team's ceiling this upcoming season. So I'm going to say playoff team. I think they're actually, if I had to say right now, I'd put them behind the Knicks and the Cavaliers. I just think if you just roll out the squad we have right now without James Harden, they might not even make the second round, if I'm being honest with you. It's gonna be a weird year, I think, for the Sixers. Not super excited about where the team is headed overall. I think if Maxey takes a huge jump, they could be, somewhere like up here or even up here. I think we got to be realistic with ourselves as Sixers fans. As much as I want to say, oh, they're conference finals, I got to be objective here, and I got to put them in the second round max, pretty much, kind of thing. Like Phoenix, I'm going playoff team. I'm sorry, you guys are gonna kill me in the comments. I know you're gonna kill me in the comments. Listen, I'm not a believer. I think the Bradley Beal trade was not smart at all. I hated the trade. I still don't like it. I'm gonna be very critical here of Phoenix. I think their defense is going to be horrendous. I think the Mavs have better defense than the Suns right now. How many players on the Phoenix Suns are above average defenders? Like how many? Maybe like 3? I don't even know about that. I just think, look, if you're gonna say that their 3 superstars are going to score 80 points a game, listen, that's probably gonna happen. There's gonna be games where those guys go off for 100 points total. Who's going to be the primary playmaker? Who's going to be the primary ball handler? How do you defend a backcourt like the Warriors now, or even the Lakers with Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell? How do you defend that with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker as your starting backcourt? I just don't love it. I don't love the Suns. I think the fit is very questionable with all those 3 guys, and I'm low on the Suns. I'm not high on the Suns at all. I think this is as fair as I can be right here. I could see them making the conference finals. I'd give them a 1 in 100 shot, but I just think it would be unfair to these teams to put them up there. I don't believe that they're as good as these teams right now. So that's where I have the Suns. Portland is a lottery team for me. I'm really excited to see Scoot Henderson and how he can develop for them over the course of the season. I actually have Scoot Henderson probably as my rookie of the year. I just think he's going to have the best stats and play the most out of all the rookies, which is really what it comes down to. I don't know. Portland's a weird one. Anthony Simons is an awesome player. Jeremy Grant's an awesome player. Yeah, you know what? I am going to put worst record in the NBA type team. I just think they're way behind even these teams. So I think they've needed to do this what they're doing, kind of like just blowing it up like probably 4 years ago, honestly. But don't love how they've handled the whole roster situation since Dame has come in the league. Really, they've really failed to put superstar talent around him, or even just the necessary talent to just give you the opportunity to take Portland as far as they can go. I don't know. I just don't love the Trailblazers. Sacramento, they're a playoff team. They are a playoff team. I actually like Sacramento quite a lot. I think I'd put them over the Mavericks. I think I'd actually even put them over the Timberwolves. I just think their ceiling is lower than some of these teams, but their floor is higher, if that makes sense. Like, they're for sure going to be a playoff team, but can they make it to the conference finals without really making huge improvements to the roster? I really believe they should have been more aggressive in free agency, but that's just me. I like the Kings. Keegan Murray makes a huge step. I think they could be right there, but a lot of things went right for them last year, like having, scoring the most clutch points in the league and being a great fourth quarter team and winning a lot of close games and everyone being healthy all the time. I just think that's stuff that doesn't happen every year. And I think, while I do believe it wasn't a fluke at all, I just think their ceiling is a lot lower than these teams here. San Antonio, worst record in the NBA type team. We're going to see how much of an impact Victor can make this season as a rookie. I think Devin Vassell is a slept-on player in the league. I think he's going to take a huge step this year. I think Keldon Johnson is awesome too. Love the wings that they have in San Antonio. Trey Jones is a solid player. I just don't know if I don't think they're anywhere near ready to be a play-in team or it's just interesting. I'm really excited to see Victor and how he plays this season as a rookie. Where they put him, are they put him at the 5, at the 4? I think he should be a 5 personally, just given the roster that they have. Not like forever. I just think, they don't have a solid center to be the 5 while he plays 4 at 7'5" or whatever he is. So Spurs just not there yet. I don't think they're close to the Rockets or the Pelicans, Thunder. They're a fun team to watch, look out for. I really like what they're building, and that's all I can really say about the Spurs. I think Toronto's a lottery team. I think that's pretty fair to say. You lose, your second best player, Fred VanVleet. Still Pascal Siakam, who I think is one of the more underrated players in the league. I just don't love the approach of just throwing out 4 athletic wings and a center, what they've been doing the last few years. I think Toronto's in a situation, honestly, where they need to blow it up. I think they've had to blow it up for quite some time now. Trade Pascal to Philly for James Harden and, Tobias Harris, and then you call it a day. No, I'm just kidding, but I do want that a lot. I'm a big Pascal Siakam believer, and he would be awesome next to Embiid, but listen, Toronto, blow it up. I think that's the best thing you could do right now. And Washington obviously goes right here because, they're just, you can make a case that Washington has the worst roster in the league right now. I do respect what they did, though, in trying to just, send everybody out, blow it up. They've needed to do that, like I said, for probably 5 years now. So that's the tier list, man. I know we have a lot of playoff teams here. Like I said, these are not all going to be playoff teams. They just mathematically can't. But I do believe in these teams to make the playoffs. I do believe in these teams to make the conference finals. And I do believe any one of these teams could be legitimate contenders and I could see making it out of the West. You can make a case that the Lakers are here, the Warriors are here. I just think the Lakers, Warriors, Grizzlies, Suns, even Clippers, Kings, like they all are kind of in that same realm of like, they're just on a similar tier of team. They're not the clear-cut favorite by any means, I wouldn't say, for really anybody, because of Denver, this team right here, who I have winning the finals again this year on paper. But listen, let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. Where did your favorite team land? Is that a fair ranking for your team? Make sure you guys drop a like on the video if you guys enjoyed the tier list. I know some of you guys are not going to because, listen, I get it. You're passionate. You're fans of a certain team. And, if I saw somebody rank the Sixers in lottery teams, I'd be upset. But I tried to be fair to everybody. I think this is where the league will shape up this year, the 2023-2024 season. It's okay to disagree with me. I actually like when people disagree with me, and that's how you learn. That's how you learn things. I don't always want to be right. That's not fun. That's not why I do this. It's not always about being right or, being the smartest guy. It's just about basketball. More videos to come. Make sure you guys subscribe if you guys don't want to miss any NBA content in the future. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day today. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, buddies.